In this video, we're going to look at the top 5 most common receptionist interview questions and how to give fantastic answers to these. So the first thing that often comes up is how would you deal with an angry or upset customer? So I've given you a basic scaffold for your answer. So the first thing you need to talk about is de-escalation. You're not going to make things any worse. You're going to calm down that customer. Next thing, you're going to be aware of the company policy and you're going to tell your interviewer that you are going to follow exactly what policy is set down. You're also going to deal with it with empathy, compassion, calmness, and most importantly, you need to get across that you're going to positively represent the brand and you're going to make sure that that customer comes away with a positive impression and you solve their problem, you calm them down, and you make sure you never make the situation any worse. Key thing to note, don't retaliate and ask for support. So in your answer, using the phrase, I never retaliate, I never raise my voice, and if it becomes, too much, then I always ask for support and utilize the support networks to come to a positive resolution. Next question that often comes up is your strengths and weaknesses. And a great strength is a genuine strength that you can evidence and that is highly relevant to the job. So for example, you could say, I'm very good at providing excellent service to challenging customers. That's very relevant to the job of a receptionist. And you could go on to say with some evidence, if you refer to the reference from my previous manager, she recounts, and then you can tell the story that's in there. That would be a fabulous answer. Perhaps, you can't hit exactly this example that I've given you, but you want to look at writing an answer, and I would recommend you write it out in full, where you can say, here's a strength, and here's some proof, and this is why it's relevant. So get those 3 points in, and your answer will be magically brilliant. Weakness is a dangerous question. You've got to be very careful with this. You have to have a real weakness. For example, saying, I'm too much of a perfectionist is not a real weakness, and it won't be taken seriously. The next step in your answer is you have to be proactively addressing that. So you have to be doing something about it. Just saying I'm terrible at this and then just stopping is a terrible answer. You have to say I'm bad at this, but this is what I'm doing. And most importantly, you can't have something that's hugely important to the job. Otherwise, that's going to get you in trouble. For example, saying, sometimes I come across a little rude. Well, that's going to be a disaster if you're on reception. So don't mention a weakness that is key to the job that you're applying for. Very obvious, a lot of people forget that. So to structure your answer when you're planning it out, here's a way to start it. So one of the weaknesses I am aware of is, and then go on to say, I have been working on this by. So structure it that way and you'll get a great answer. Third, what can you bring to this role? And I've given you a checklist that you can follow to hit all of the points they're looking for. So you've got commitment. You're committed to doing a great job. You're flexible as far as possible. So if there's a gap to fill, you can just jump in and do that, whether that's covering for someone or taking on a slightly different role within the organization on a short-term basis. And that comes into being proactive and adaptable. You're not just going to sit in your reception doing only that. You're willing to help out when appropriate. You're open to change. You're very enthusiastic. That should always come across in the interview. And you want to make the point that you're friendly, polite, and you're professional at all times, because that's really what a receptionist needs to be. So the fourth question, what do you believe are your training requirements? So ultimately they want someone who's very self-aware, that knows exactly what training they've done, what they need, and how they develop professionally. You want to be able to lead your own learning, so you can say, I'm very aware of what training needs I've got, and I can lead on and make sure those are all achieved. So some things you might want to talk about is you can talk about your previous experience. In previous jobs, I've received this training to this level. You need to use your company research. So you might say, my previous job was in a clinical setting, in say, a doctor's office, and now I'm moving into the corporate setting. So, I need the support and training to make that transition. You might talk about first aid if that's a requirement of where you're working and you've not previously had that or it's out of date. And you often have to have, and for pretty much every employer, training on the protocols and procedures. So what are the policies? what do you do in this circumstance? You need to be trained on how the company functions and all of the policies, and that will come under your mandatory training. So if you hit all of those points, you're showing that you've got great knowledge, you're self-aware, and you're able to lead your own learning. Last one, what experience do you have with computers? And this is what we call a negative screening question. So a great answer to this isn't going to get you the job, whereas a terrible answer will lose you the job, right? So if you're like, oh, I'm good with typewriters, but I don't like computers, well, it's not the 1950s, right? You have to be competent with computers, otherwise you're in the wrong job. So if you're scared of computers or really not confident, that's going to take you right out of the running. The things you need to get across in your answer is you're competent with Microsoft Office. So, you can write letters, no problem, on Word. You can book appointments. If you've already done these things, say, I have done these and this is when I have done them. Windows is the operating system that the computer uses on Microsoft systems. So you talk about being able to use that if you are. So the key idea, make sure you get these three skills, because that covers the vast majority of the job, and that you are confident with computers. Lastly, as a bonus, here's some questions to ask. And I've given you 6 suggestions that you can read through, that if you ask these questions, it makes you look very good and very positive. The worst things to ask about, it'll make you look very bad, is do not ask about pay. You ask about that after you've got the job. Don't ask about holidays, because that makes you look like someone who doesn't want to do work. And probably the worst thing you can talk about is lack of childcare. For example, if the job is being advertised for a Thursday and you say, oh, I can't really do a Thursday because of childcare, well, you're not going to get the job. All right. If you're going to create problems at the end of the interview and say, I can't meet your requirements, and you don't get the job, it's no surprise. So focus on the suggested questions that I've given you. Do not ask about that in red, otherwise it could lose you the job. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and thank you very much for watching.